Across the United States, a troubling pattern is starting to take shape. Neighborhoods are dotted with partially finished houses, vacant plots of land, and construction sites that look like they were frozen in time. By 2025, many homebuilders aren't just backing out of small remodeling jobs, they're abandoning entire residential developments. The cause of this exodus isn't mysterious. Building expenses have surged far beyond projections, buyer interest has faded dramatically, and the overall housing market has become so unpredictable that many projects can't be completed. Today, we're taking a closer look at 10 U.S. cities where construction didn't just slow down, it came to a full stop. These are places where developers broke ground with confidence back in 2021, only to leave behind unfinished communities that feel more like modern ghost towns by 2025. So, if you're in the market for a home, thinking about investing, or simply want to understand where and why America's housing momentum is faltering, stick with us through the end. And don't forget to subscribe to Discover the Cities for visually immersive coverage of every chapter in the evolving American housing landscape. Let's dive in. Number 10. Cape Coral, Florida. Cape Coral used to stand out as one of Florida's most promising real estate success stories, a sun-soaked maze of canals where retirees, growing families, and eager investors could snag waterfront property without paying Miami-level prices. From 2020 to 2022, demand exploded. Data from Redfin and Zillow showed home values soaring by more than 70%, with the median price topping $420,000 at the peak of the frenzy. Builders were laying foundations almost as fast as buyers were placing deposits. But by 2025, that bright picture has noticeably faded. Across Lee County, the number of homes on the market has nearly doubled in just 12 months, and median sale prices have slipped by more than 12%. Redfin now notes that close to a quarter of all homes are selling for less than their asking price, a dramatic reversal from the bidding war chaos of 2021. The issue, however, goes beyond simple overbuilding. Cape Coral's distinctive geography, its sprawling canal network and low-elevation neighborhoods, places it among the most flood-exposed housing markets in the nation. After Hurricane Ian, newly updated flood zone maps pushed many properties into higher risk categories, and insurance premiums skyrocketed in response. CoreLogic estimates that homeowners throughout Southwest Florida now spend roughly 3 times what they paid for insurance just 5 years ago. Some households are shelling out as much as $15,000 a year for insurance alone. That financial strain has pushed buyers to the sidelines. Retirees relying on fixed incomes are canceling contracts. Younger families are opting for safer inland cities, and even traditionally steady cash buyers are hesitating, worried that rising sea levels and frequent storms could erode long-term property value. Developers who once started entire subdivisions without blinking are now slowing down. Many have paused construction, while others are offering hefty markdowns just to clear out remaining inventory. Meanwhile, environmental and economic pressures continue to pile up. Recurring red tide blooms along the Gulf Coast have hurt local tourism, and long-delayed infrastructure improvements are squeezing city budgets, forcing local fees and assessments upward. Cape Coral still has its appeal: the warm weather, the waterfront lifestyle, the laid-back charm. But when insurance bills start competing with mortgage payments and market confidence begins to waver, even a place that once felt like paradise has to contend with harsh realities. By 2025, Cape Coral's housing boom has eased into a steady downturn, a reminder that rapid growth built on risk, uncertainty, and environmental vulnerability can't stay buoyant forever. Number 9. Austin, Texas. Just a few years ago, Austin was the undisputed superstar of America's housing surge, a thriving tech hub where startups, creatives, and deep-pocketed newcomers all converged in a whirlwind of growth. From 2020 to 2022, prices in the metro area skyrocketed. Zillow and Redfin data show the median home price jumping nearly 70%, climbing past $575,000 at the height of the frenzy. Houses were selling within days, often for tens of thousands above the listing price. But by 2025, that feverish momentum has cooled, and in some areas, reversed completely. Housing inventory across the Austin region has surged more than 60% compared to the previous year. Builders, who once couldn't keep up with the demand, are now walking away from partially framed houses and putting planned developments on hold. Suburban communities like Leander, Kyle, and Manor, once hotbeds of non-stop construction, are now seeing work slow to a crawl. According to Redfin, almost 1 out of every 3 new build contracts in 2024 fell apart before closing, a clear indication that confidence has dipped on both sides of the market. The forces behind this shift are hardly mysterious. Waves of tech layoffs have shaken Austin's white-collar job base. Mortgage rates hovering above 7% have pushed thousands of potential buyers out of reach. And the sheer volume of homes built during the boom years has oversaturated the market, making it difficult for demand to catch up. Major developers like D.R. Horton and Lennar have hit the brakes, delaying projects as they confront rising costs and dwindling interest. Drive through the outer edges of the city, and you'll notice the signs of a stalled market. Long stretches of newly paved streets lined with empty plots, skeletal house frames baking in the Texas sun, and weathered signs promoting future development that now feels indefinitely postponed. Affordability, a trait that once drew so many new residents to Austin, has eroded. With a median household income around $85,000, the typical mortgage payment now claims over 40% of local earnings. Even the rental market, which once saw relentless upward pressure, is softening as vacancy rates climb and landlords slash prices to fill units. Realtor.com now lists Austin among the least affordable places to buy a home in the United States, a stunning reversal from its earlier reputation as a vibrant, accessible city for newcomers. Austin still buzzes with creativity, culture, and innovation, but its housing landscape paints a different picture. By 2025, the unfinished homes scattered along the city's outskirts serve as a quiet reminder that even the most powerful boom can falter when rapid growth stretches beyond what the market can sustain. Number 8. Reno, Nevada. For a long stretch, Reno was celebrated as one of the great comeback stories of the modern West. What was once a fading casino town reinvented itself as a rising hub for tech companies, advanced manufacturing, and large-scale logistics. When Tesla announced plans for its massive gigafactory near Sparks, the entire region transformed almost overnight into one of the hottest housing markets in the country. From 2020 through 2022, home values across Reno and Sparks climbed at breakneck speed, nearly 60%, according to data from Redfin and Zillow. Developers rushed into the high desert, green-lighting thousands of new builds throughout Spanish Springs, South Reno, and Damonte Ranch. Construction cranes dotted the skyline, and confidence was sky-high. But by 2025, that rapid expansion has lost its momentum. Climbing interest rates, the inflated cost of building materials, and increasing anxiety about long-term water availability have combined to stall the boom. Median home prices have fallen roughly 10% in the last year. Inventory has doubled, and cancellations on new home contracts are piling up. Realtor.com now places Reno among the western metros with the most price reductions and construction delays. Anyone driving through the once busy development zones can see the shift immediately. Neighborhoods that were advertised as upscale desert retreats now sit partially finished, with exposed lumber slowly bleaching under the relentless Nevada sun. Streets suddenly dead-end into barren lots, and sales centers that once bustled with buyers now sit dark and untouched. Residents have started referring to them as ghost neighborhoods, quiet reminders of a market that expanded faster than demand could sustain. Developers cite economic instability and soaring expenses, but the core problem is shrinking interest. The migration wave that once brought remote workers and California transplants into northern Nevada has faded dramatically. Zillow reports that online home searches from Bay Area buyers are down nearly 45% since 2021. With fewer cash buyers and tighter lending from banks, the risk no longer matches the reward for many builders. Water availability is another major concern. Persistent drought conditions throughout the Truckee River Basin have heightened fears about long-term sustainability. As a result, city regulators have imposed stricter permitting rules and environmental requirements, which has pushed construction costs even higher. Reno still has its strengths: stunning mountain scenery, a vibrant art community, and easy access to Lake Tahoe, but the era of easy growth has clearly ended. The construction sites are quieter, and the once surging optimism has settled into a more cautious realism. By 2025, Reno stands as a cautionary tale for every rapidly growing city in America. When speculation races ahead of stability, even a desert city rebuilt on big dreams can fall eerily silent. Number 7. Raleigh, North Carolina. Raleigh once stood at the very center of the post-pandemic relocation boom. Between 2020 and 2022, waves of newcomers arrived from New York, California, Washington, and other high-cost regions, all eager for the Research Triangle's mix of affordable housing, strong employment opportunities, and that easygoing southern atmosphere. Zillow reports that in just 2 years, Raleigh's median home price climbed almost 55%, topping out near $475,000. Entire communities in Fuquay Varina, Wendell, and Clayton seem to spring up almost overnight as builders race to keep pace. But by 2025, the tone has shifted. Construction sites that once buzzed with activity have quieted. Many cranes sit idle, framing crews have moved on, and the rapid pace of development that defined the early 2020s has slowed to a near standstill. Redfin data shows active listings soaring more than 80% compared to last year, while pending sales have fallen by nearly 1/3. Homes that used to attract multiple offers by Monday morning now linger on the market for months. Several new subdivisions designed to anchor Raleigh's next chapter of growth are now paused indefinitely. Affordability. Raleigh's longtime selling point has all but vanished. With mortgage rates above 7%, many first-time buyers are simply locked out. CoreLogic estimates that over 40% of renters in the area can no longer qualify for even the most basic starter home. Builders who once assumed endless demand are now staring at too many unsold houses, prompting them to cancel permits and delay new phases rather than add to the growing surplus. At the same time, construction costs haven't backed down. Lumber prices remain elevated, labor shortages continue to push wages higher, and financing for large-scale developments has become harder to secure. Even the region's robust tech and biotech ecosystem hasn't been able to fully offset the cooling market. Wage growth has stalled, and the influx of remote workers that once boosted the region's housing demand has slowed to a faint trickle. A drive through Raleigh's recently built neighborhoods makes the transformation easy to see. Quiet streets are lined with empty model homes, lots where grass and weeds have started to reclaim the land, and for sale signs that have clearly weathered more than a few weeks in the sun. Developers are rolling out incentives covering closing costs, buying down mortgage rates, and offering premium upgrades, but many buyers remain cautious. Raleigh's situation isn't a collapse, it's a recalibration. The city still has a strong economic foundation and a bright, long-term outlook. But its housing market is confronting a tough but essential reality. Even the fastest-growing cities eventually run into the hard limits of affordability. Number 6. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix was once the defining symbol of the Sunbelt surge, a metro celebrated for its year-round sunshine, relatively low housing costs, and what felt like endless room for new development. Between 2020 and 2022, nearly 200,000 people moved into the region, and builders raced to keep pace. Redfin estimates that by late 2022, more than 60,000 housing units were somewhere in the construction pipeline, making Phoenix one of the most aggressively built markets in the country. Home prices soared past $475,000, almost 70% higher than they were before the pandemic. But by 2025, that sense of unstoppable growth has faded. The metro is now dotted with half-finished projects, a patchwork of abandoned beginnings. In suburbs like Goodyear, Buckeye, and Queen Creek, neighborhoods that once hummed with activity now sit eerily still. Bulldozers and cranes have been hauled away, concrete slabs lie exposed to the elements, and wooden frames are bleaching beneath. The desert sun. Many builders have locked up their sites, pausing work indefinitely as costs rise and buyers disappear. The retreat of investors has only worsened the downturn. During the peak years, large corporate landlords and short-term rental investors made up a major share of Phoenix's demand, but rising interest rates and softening rents pulled the rug out from under that trend. Zillow reports that investor purchases have fallen roughly 45% from their 2022 high point. With demand drying up, builders are now shouldering holding costs they simply can't manage, leading some to abandon projects outright. Water scarcity has become another serious roadblock. Arizona's long-running drought has reached alarming levels, and state officials have begun halting approvals for new subdivisions in parts of Maricopa County because of groundwater concerns. Combine that with extreme heat, record-breaking energy use, and the high cost of development, and many builders now see large-scale expansion as a gamble they can't justify. Redfin shows that home prices have dipped around 10% from their peak, while cancellations on new build contracts have more than doubled. Families who bought early in these planned communities now find themselves living beside vacant lots and incomplete streets, unsure whether their neighborhoods will ever be finished. Phoenix still boasts strong job growth and striking desert landscapes, but its housing market is sounding an unmistakable warning. In 2025, the quiet stretching across unfinished subdivisions tells a simple truth. The metro that climbed fastest during the boom is now discovering how quickly momentum can fade when growth outpaces sustainability. Number 5. Boise, Idaho. Boise was once the star of America's remote work explosion, a place that seemed to blend natural beauty, economic opportunity, and reasonable housing costs better than almost any other city. From 2020 through 2022, it became one of the fastest-rising real estate markets in the entire country. Redfin's data shows home prices jumping more than 60% in that short span as buyers from California, Washington, and Oregon poured into the Treasure Valley in search of space, affordability, and a fresh start. Builders were overwhelmed. Suburbs like Meridian, Kuna, and Nampa transformed into non-stop construction zones. Cranes became part of the everyday skyline. Farmland was rapidly carved into subdivisions, and Boise picked up the nickname Zoomtown USA, the crown jewel of the pandemic-era migration wave. But that surge rested on shaky foundations, speculation, ultra-cheap lending, and a wave of remote workers that was never guaranteed to last. By 2025, the correction has arrived in full force. Median home prices have dropped close to 20% from their peak. Inventory has doubled, and Redfin reports that new listings now sit on the market 3 times longer than they did during the height of the boom. Projects once expected to deliver huge returns are now hemorrhaging money. In areas like Kuna and Star, entire neighborhoods have been left suspended in mid-construction. Roads dead-end at fenced-off parcels, and half-poured foundations bake under the Idaho sun. Buyers who put down deposits in 2022 are now being offered refunds or, in some cases, no communication at all. At the heart of the slowdown is affordability. Local incomes simply haven't kept up with the inflated prices created during the migration rush. Zillow estimates that the average monthly mortgage now consumes over 40% of a typical household's income, pushing homeownership out of reach for many longtime residents. Construction activity reflects the shift. Developers are submitting building permits at the lowest pace in 10 years. Large national builders are pulling out and redirecting their resources to markets with stronger demand. Smaller contractors who once built dozens of homes annually are now struggling to break ground on even a handful. Boise still has all the qualities that made it appealing in the first place: gorgeous scenery, friendly communities, and a strong sense of place. But the frenzy is over. The once roaring Zoomtown engine has slowed to a gentle idle. And in 2025, the construction noise that once echoed across the valley has been replaced by quiet neighborhoods and open skies, a calm that signals a housing market finally settling back down to reality. Number 4. Denver, Colorado. For much of the last decade, Denver represented the ideal vision of the modern American West: energetic, youthful, and overflowing with potential. From 2015 through 2022, it ranked among the top destinations in the country for new residents and fresh development. Entire neighborhoods sprang up across Highlands Ranch, Aurora, and Commerce City as newcomers chased mountain views, outdoor living, and a vibrant urban lifestyle. But by 2025, the momentum that once seemed unstoppable has slowed dramatically. Construction zones that were once buzzing with activity now feel strangely quiet. According to Zillow, housing inventory has jumped nearly 70% since 2023. While pending sales have dropped to the lowest level Denver has seen in a decade, The city's median home price, which hovered near $600,000 at its height, has fallen roughly 12% year over year, with the downward trend still ongoing. Developers often point to rising expenses and persistent labor shortages. But many locals believe the true problem is far simpler. Buyers have vanished. With mortgage rates sticking above 7%, affordability has collapsed. The income needed to comfortably purchase a typical home now exceeds $120,000 per year, yet wages across the metro have barely budged. Thousands of would-be buyers are effectively locked out. Construction along the Front Range has slowed to a crawl. Projects once considered central to Denver's future, from upscale high-rise condos and downtown townhomes to sprawling new suburban communities, now sit in various stages of abandonment. Drive through these areas and you'll notice grass creeping over sidewalks, empty streets, and lots that were once destined for families who never arrived. Even the rental market, previously one of the tightest in the country, is loosening. Vacancies are rising, and landlords are trimming prices in an effort to fill units. Meanwhile, developers who built their business models on the assumption of non-stop population growth are now struggling with mounting debt. Realtor.com notes that nearly 1 out of every 5 developers in the Denver metro has canceled or delayed major projects this year alone. Denver still retains its biggest strengths: quick access to the Rockies, a diverse job market, and a thriving cultural scene, but confidence in the housing sector has clearly cracked. The explosive pandemic-era boom that once propelled the city into the national spotlight has cooled into a far more cautious reset. In 2025, Denver's skyline still glows beautifully against the mountains. Yet on the ground, the quiet stretches of unfinished developments offer a reminder that even the mile-high city can't climb endlessly without stability and balance. Number 3. San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio used to be one of Texas's fastest rising stars, a city where deep history blended seamlessly with new opportunity, and where developers saw miles of room to grow. From 2020 to 2022, it consistently ranked among the top 5 U.S. metros for new housing starts. The National Association of Homebuilders noted that suburbs like Cibolo, Schertz, and New Braunfels were booming with fresh construction. Thousands of lots were graded, permits rushed through city offices, and concrete foundations appeared across Bexar County as optimism swept the region. By 2025, however, that surge has lost much of its steam. A drive through those same subdivisions reveals the shift instantly. Long rows of concrete slabs sit untouched. Wooden frames, once the skeletons of future homes, now stand sun-bleached and weather-worn. Coming soon, signs that once promised new communities have faded into symbols of stalled ambition. Redfin shows new home sales down nearly 30% from the previous year. Builders that expanded aggressively during the pandemic are now reversing course, leaving half-finished developments scattered across the metro area. Many in the industry point to rising interest rates, and they aren't wrong. With mortgage rates still above 7%, holding unsold inventory has become financially punishing. But the deeper issue goes beyond financing. Affordability has slipped away. San Antonio's long-held identity as an affordable alternative to Austin and Houston is eroding. Home prices climbed nearly 50% during the pandemic, yet local wages rose only about 12% over the same period. That widening gap has shut out many middle-income families who once formed the backbone of the buyer pool. Construction costs haven't eased either. Materials remain expensive, skilled labor is still in short supply, and developers are finding that many of their projects no longer pencil out. Some builders have cut their losses altogether, walking away from investments they once expected to be profitable. The slowdown is spreading through the broader housing economy. Electricians, plumbers, framers, and small contractors are all reporting fewer jobs and shrinking margins. Still, San Antonio's overall economic foundation remains solid. Key sectors like healthcare, the military, tourism, and manufacturing continue to provide stability. The housing market isn't collapsing, it's simply cooling after years of intense expansion. For now, the quiet subdivisions and half-built homes tell the real story. San Antonio's once relentless growth has taken a pause, highlighting a truth felt across much of the country. Even Texas's most resilient markets eventually run into the limits of affordability and rapid overdevelopment. Number 2. Bakersfield, California. For years, Bakersfield was viewed as California's final refuge for families searching for affordable home ownership, a place where everyday people could still buy a house while much of the state pushed prices beyond reach. It became a landing spot for those leaving Los Angeles and the Bay Area in hopes of finding more space, better value, and a slower pace of life. Developers took notice quickly. Between 2019 and 2022, the number of housing permits jumped nearly 40%, transforming stretches of farmland throughout southwest Bakersfield, Rosedale, and the Kern River corridor into fast-growing suburban communities. By 2025, that momentum has slowed dramatically. Construction costs have surged, lending standards have tightened, and buyer demand has weakened, bringing the once rapid boom to an uneasy crawl. A drive through these new neighborhoods reveals the shift instantly. Partially paved streets lead to nowhere. Heavy equipment sits parked in Tessendai. Silent, and sales centers with temporarily closed signs have become part of the landscape. Redfin reports home prices down roughly 9% from a year ago, while the number of active listings has climbed almost 60%. Builders who used to promise quick move-in timelines are now delaying phases or scrapping projects entirely. The math simply doesn't work anymore. Bakersfield's claim to affordability has eroded far faster than expected. Insurance premiums have climbed sharply following multiple wildfire seasons across Central California. Property taxes have risen in the wake of inflated pandemic-era assessments. Coupled with elevated mortgage rates, the typical household now spends more than 45% of its income on housing, an unprecedented strain for the region. The local economy, anchored to agriculture and energy, is feeling the pressure as well. Water shortages are driving up operating costs for farms, while stricter environmental regulations continue to limit oil production. Those economic headwinds have made both buyers and lenders wary of taking on new risks. Large institutional investors who once purchased entire streets of rental homes have stepped back too, adding more unsold inventory and uncertainty to the market. Bakersfield isn't collapsing, it's recalibrating. The city remains family-friendly, relatively spacious, and still more attainable than most of California. But its period of rapid expansion has clearly come to an end. Today, the quiet cul-de-sacs and rows of half-finished homes offer a sober reminder. Even the most affordable markets can stumble when growth outpaces what the economy and community can sustainably support. Number 1. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas has always lived on the edge, a city founded on bold risks, dramatic reinvention, and the belief that the next big win is just around the corner. Its skyline rises from the desert like a monument to ambition and excess. But in 2025, the gamble that once powered the city's explosive housing boom has finally turned cold. The cards have been dealt, and this time, it isn't the tourists who are losing, it's the housing market itself. During the pandemic-era buying frenzy, Las Vegas became one of the most sought-after real estate markets in the country. From 2020 to 2022, the median home price surged more than 50%, reaching close to $450,000 according to Redfin. Builders raced to put up new communities across the valley, stretching from North Las Vegas to Henderson and Summerlin, fueled by cheap loans and the belief that the city's growth would never taper off. By 2025, that confidence has unraveled. Construction zones that once overflowed with workers now sit quiet behind chain-link fences. Developers are backing out of land deals, canceling contracts, and leaving projects unfinished. Major companies like Lennar and DR. Horton have slowed or halted builds altogether, citing costs they can't control and demand they no longer trust. High interest rates are hitting buyers hard. With mortgages hovering near 7%, homeownership is slipping out of reach for thousands. Zillow reports that average monthly payments have jumped roughly 85% since 2019. Rising utility bills up nearly 20% since 2023, and climbing insurance premiums tied to extreme heat, drought, and wildfire risk are squeezing household budgets even tighter. Tourism has bounced back, and the Strip feels alive again with packed hotels and busy resorts. But that rebound has not spilled over into the housing sector. Many workers in hospitality and entertainment still can't afford to buy a home, and the investors who once flooded the market with cash offers are quietly exiting. In neighborhoods throughout North Las Vegas, the slowdown is impossible to miss. Rows of half-finished homes sit behind locked gates, sales centers stand dark, Streets built for booming subdivisions remain empty, echoing with the uncertainty developers no longer want to bet against. Las Vegas still glitters beneath the desert night, but the shine hides a deeper truth. The city that built its identity on limitless ambition is now confronting the reality that no market, not even this one, can outrun economic gravity. These 10 cities illustrate a broader story. The housing crash of 2025 isn't just about falling prices, it's about abandoned plans, stalled neighborhoods, and families caught in the middle of unfinished dreams. This is what happens when a housing boom burns too hot and the real world catches up. Subscribe to Discover the Cities for more cinematic insights into where America's housing market goes next. Because this chapter is far from over in many ways, the story is only beginning.